I don't know how to start this one. Yeah, this will have to do. Godzilla vs Megaguirus is the only Godzilla flick you can't find online just by searching for Godzilla plus the year it was released. Because if you look for Godzilla 2000, you will instead find the last movie rather than this one. They should have thought this one through. Even though none of the movies of this era share any sort of continuity between them, they all more or less have a similar premise, set not by the first installment but rather the second, this one. The details may change a bit, but basically all of them are set in a reality in which the threat of a Godzilla attack is an ever-present one for Japanese people, just like in Millennium. But unlike that movie, which is told from the point of view of either government officials or civilians, the focus point of the following flicks would be the militaries from a task force created with the specific purpose of countering Godzilla. Kinda like the G-Force. Megaguirus takes off from the curious starting point of an alternate world, in which the original Godzilla was never destroyed at the end of the first movie, but instead continued to attack Japan's nuclear power sources for decades, making the country give up on the pursuit of atomic energy altogether. The intro uses footage from the 1954's film over new scenes of the Michiru suit. Yes, this is the exact same suit they used in the previous movie. No, they are not connected to each other, as I mentioned 5 times already. They just got lazy for this one. Not that I mind actually, because the suit borders on perfect for me. I might be biased because I have a Bandai toy based on the design over my bed, so looking at its ugly face every night may have made it grow on me. But then again, people often say the suit from Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla might very well be the best Godzilla design ever made, and it's literally this design with grey fins, so... I happen to like the purple fins though, they look unique. Curiously enough, this is the only Godzilla suit to be colored green, even if a very dark grayish green. But my toy isn't green, so who cares. Back to the plot. In the present day, an anti-Godzilla unit within the Japanese Defense Force has developed a new weapon that should get rid of the monster for good. It's a gun that shoots mini black holes. I know, it's absurd, silly, and very cool looking. Unfortunately, the first test with the weapon, despite working flawlessly, accidentally creates a race of giant dragonflies. Because if there is one thing you can trust this franchise will do, is show us that everything creates giant monsters. Radiation, black holes, black hole radiation. At first, the creatures are restricted to the countryside in which the test was conducted, and would stay that way if it wasn't for this kid taking a huge egg to Tokyo with him, then dumping it on the sewer as soon as he arrives at the city out of fear. No, I don't get it either. And the worst part is that he disappears from the plot after that. But may his never-ending curiosity guide us into higher places.
女の人なのにどうしてゴジラと戦ってるの?
At Tokyo, the Meganullon, based on the same creatures from Rodan, start preying on human beings, flood the streets of the city and reproduce like crazy underwater, a series of events that culminate in one of the most unsettling scenes in the history of the franchise. Hell, if I saw an entire wall filled with normal-sized insects, I would lose it, let alone giant ones. The massive swarm takes off and heads towards Godzilla in order to suck some of his juice, if you catch my meaning. Now, the idea of Godzilla facing off against a group of smaller foes is a novel one, and pretty intriguing too at that. He usually goes up against opponents of his own size, even if they are in bigger number. The only time I was talking about his radiation right now, just to be clear. The only time Godzilla had to deal with a group of short-sized monsters was very briefly in Destroyer. And even then, your mileage may vary because they are only half of his size. But a full swarm of monsters? That's pretty new. Even the already mentioned Destroyer never explored this possibility, and he was literally a big thing formed by smaller things. Unfortunately, the movie quickly dropped this concept, as the Megaguirus head back to Tokyo and feed another, bigger creature with Godzilla's energy, giving birth to Megaguirus, a very big insect. So basically Mothra, except evil, so basically Batra. Predictably, the following fight between the two beasts goes as you would expect. I mean, except for this. But I guess even that has a precedent, so... Anyhow, once again Godzilla starts by receiving a beatdown just to suddenly turn the table on its enemy and win the fight. We have seen the character going against flying creatures time and again. They have all behaved pretty much the same through the years, and Megaguirus is no exception. Its only notable ability is to vibrate its wings in very high frequencies, damaging nearby structures. Not only does it look cheap, in practice this is no different than the whirlwind that Rodan and Mothra are capable of producing. Megaguirus goes down as one of the most uninspired villains in the history of the franchise, notably being the only character introduced after 1980 to not be currently featured in the main page of Wikizilla. That's a silly thing to bring up, I know, but I see it as a statement of how little impact it left on the viewers. Once Godzilla has dealt with the lesser evil, the Defense Force shoots a black hole at him from a satellite in space. A satellite that happens to be falling towards Earth and with no means of locking on Godzilla. In an act of desperation, they attempt to lock the targeting system on the Griffon airship and then toss it at Godzilla. In one of the most absurd displays of action in the history of the franchise, the giant monster is engulfed in a big ball of light and vanishes from the face of the earth. It's absurd, it's silly, and I happen to dig it quite a lot. I was actually surprised by this ending. Not the whole satellite thing, I mean. Like you could see, I came to believe this movie would be inclining on the invincible side of the character way too much, down to not dispatching him at the conclusion. Fortunately, this is not the case. Even though it teases that Godzilla might still be alive and well under the earth, this is never confirmed, finishing the movie in a victory for the heroes. Like they would really do it. My only consolation is that this is the movie's stinger, not the proper finale. The actual ending is just...
俺ほどの天才発明家がどこにいるよ。だから折れてるっちゅうのに。
ごめん。
No wonder it took me this long to watch this movie. It has energy and some neat ideas, I give it that much, and it's no surprise the director Masaki Tezuka will later make two much better Godzilla flicks. But I can't help to pity how all this energy and ideas are wasted on a by-the-numbers film that certainly doesn't live up to the dozen others it draws inspiration from. Just like the movie's villain, it works exactly as you would expect it to work, and never goes much beyond a few glimpses of originality that failed to bring anything more than a superficial charm to the film, and the audience knew that. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus had the lowest number of admissions in the series since Terror of Mechagodzilla, 25 years earlier. This movie was proof of how stagnant the franchise had become in its later years, endlessly recycling the same tired plots and beats and monsters and themes. By 2000, Godzilla was in dire need of a shake-up. Luckily for Toho, director Shusuke Kaneko was on his way, and ready to turn the whole series on its head.
"お前はもう死んでいる." 何?